Hey there, music friends. I am Jacob from Modern Tone, and today I'm going to break down a song for you piece by piece, starting from the songwriting process through arranging, recording, all the way up to mixing and preparing the song for mastering. The song we're going to check out today is called Runaway. It's by Tess The Details. It's a really special one for me because it's one of my all-time favorites. It's the second single off of a 12-song record that is about to come out on November 14th, 2023. I'll add a link in the description to pre-save on streaming platforms and pre-order the vinyl. It's a upbeat rock song with a lot of twists and turns and some cool music ideas that all come together into this one package. So I hope you like it. Let's dive in. Okay, here's Runaway. Let's check out the first verse.
Caustic, toxic, I'm slipping under the lights. I was born to fight, but not like this. Boots tight and I fight, holding on for dear life. Take a chance on me, it's a thrill, take the rest.
Okay, so a few things about this verse. The first thing I would point out is that there's only one chord. We're in the key of C# minor, and that's pretty much the only chord being played there. That was baked in from the first day of pre-production. That's how Tess wrote it. One thing we did solidify during pre-production is that guitar pattern, those chokes going on there.
Caustic, toxic, I'm slipping under the light.
They kind of follow the vocal. Speaking of the vocal, the melody follows this A-B-A-C pattern. There's an A idea followed by a B idea, etc. The A idea is this very classic kind of rock and roll thing with the 1 and minor 7th. The B idea goes a little bit higher. Back to the A idea. Then the C idea exposes one of the highest notes of the whole song, which is this G sharp. He goes, which is kind of the tipping point into the chorus. Yeah, really cool stuff. Let's check out the first chorus, see what's going on.
The right,
Okay, so a few things going on there. The first thing I would say is that the chorus has two parts to it. We're in the key of C# minor, but just to make this a little bit easier, since we're going to the major relative, which is E, let's think of it in the chorus in the key of E for a second. So it goes 1, 2, 6, 5. That happens twice. And then the chorus kind of shifts and it creates this ascent into this emotional climax. So it goes 2, 3, 1, and then sort of 3. I would call it the fifth of 6. We'll talk about it in a sec. So here's what we got here. The first part goes. And then it changes. This is a really interesting thing. We're playing this E note over this G sharp, which is like the sharp 5. It makes it feel like an augmented chord with the way the melody sits on it, especially the second time around. I would think about it as being a borrowed chord. So it acts like the 5th of C# minor. It's the 5th of the 6th in this case. It's a secondary 5th. And when you have a functioning 5th, meaning a 5th that resolves down to its respective one, you can alter it, and you can add a sharp 5, flat 5, etc. So I would really think about it like that. It goes, sing in the key of the dead, which is a really cool idea. It's one of the first things that kind of grabbed me about this chorus. We did shift the chords around a little bit during pre-production to kind of make them sit nicer over the melody. But yeah, that's kind of the trick there. If you think of the melody for a second, so it starts with that G sharp that we exposed in the verse, and descends from there. But for the most part, it kind of sits on this the major third of that one chord. Then the second time, we're kind of going down and building up from this E note. And then that's where we get that augmented chord that I mentioned before. Then we end up with this. At the end of the chorus, we're establishing this rhythmic hook that goes. And we're going to come back to it multiple times throughout the song. Okay, let's check out the next verse of this.
Nameless, famous, I'm living an honest life. This neon sky was made for me. Goodbye, I die, raising all your concern. Vengeance I have earned, it was a pleasure to bear.
Okay, so a bunch of stuff going on here. We're back to that one chord kind of thing, and the melody is pretty much the same, but it's played in a much more aggressive kind of way. That verse always felt like kind of like a march to battle, right? Like we've kind of imagined the drums doing the whole from day one, and the whole way this verse is played, it just sets up that second chorus. Let's see what happens after that second chorus. So we ended with that same rhythmic hook.
Toxic lies, this damn neon sky. I can't run this time. No, I can't run this time.
So I would call it a setup verse. This is typically where a bridge would come in after the second chorus, but instead we're playing this section that feels a lot more like a verse with that same single C sharp minor chord and the breaks. But this time the melody is up by a third. So before we started on C sharp, and now we're all the way up to E. And that whole part builds up to this guitar solo that's played over the first half of the verse. Let's check that out.
Can't run this time.
So if you think of the structure up until this point, we went A, B, A, B, A, B, but that second part, so with that setup verse into the guitar solo, just feels a little bit different. The melody is different, and the way we structure it just feels a little bit different. Let's check out what happens after the guitar solo.
All the songs have gone to my head. I only sing in the key of the dead. So leave me now, forget what I say.
So right after that guitar solo, the vocals come in halfway through the chorus, which hasn't happened before, right? Because the vocals usually come in at the top. Then that chorus ends with the little turnaround instead of the rhythmic hook. That B, the fifth, setting up the E, and then we launch into a final chorus. Let's see what happens there. So on this last chorus, the second half of the last chorus, there's a little tag where it goes. And then back to that rhythmic hook that we established. But not only that, the lyrics kind of go back to the beginning of the song. Check it out. Here's the ending.
Forget my caustic, toxic lies.
I love songs that kind of start and end on the same way. Here's the very top of the song.
Caustic, toxic, I'm slipping up.
So not identical, but very, very close. And then let's check out the end of the bridge.
Caustic, toxic lies.
So from a songwriting perspective, we're introducing this idea 3 times. The first time is in the top of the song.
Caustic, toxic.
And then top of the bridge, we're kind of going back to this idea, but which is a slightly different melody.
Caustic, toxic lies.
And then we end the song with it as well.
I'll forget my caustic, toxic lies.
And that's Runaway. Let's move on to the arrangement.
All the songs are gone in my head. I only sing in the key of the dead. So leave me now. Is that what I said?
Okay, so here is the production session. It's the session that we use from first day of production all the way until the end when we were ready to start mixing it. Let me walk you through the session real quick and then we can talk a little bit about the arrangement. So on the left-hand side here are the drums. We've got kick in, kick sub, and kick out. I usually like to have 2 or 3 different mics on the kick drum just so I can get the level of detail I'm looking for. 2 mics on the snare, snare top and snare bottom. We've got 2 toms that were only mic'd from the top, and then an overhead. If I remember correctly, I also had a couple of room mics and maybe even a hall mic. I ended up not using them for whatever reason, but I do have this room reverb that I'm using for the drums, and then I've got another reverb here for the snare and the toms. Next up is bass. We've got a bass DI going through my Motown DI through a couple of compressors, and then we've got a Sans amp. I have the rack unit, but I mean pedal is just fine. And then we also have a bass amp, probably my Ampeg. We've got a little bit of a bass room reverb going on here. I'm also filtering out anything below 250. Guitars. So we've got 2 rhythm guitars. The bright green are the amp sound, and then the dark green is the DI, which as you can see is not really playing. It's more for editing purposes. So when you look at the DI compared to the mic, you can really see the transients, which makes it really easy to edit. Also really cool if you ever want to reamp it. The guitar mics are stereo because I've got 2 mics on the cab, and I did balance them out with the preamps going into Pro Tools, but I'm using this trim plugin to further balance them out in post-production. So left would be 1 mic, and then I guess the right-hand side would be the other mic, but they're both panned into one direction. So it feels just like one guitar track. The reason I track it like that is so I can blend it further in post-production if I wanted to. And then we've got a couple of lead guitars. We'll see what we have 2 of them later on, and then they also have their respective DI tracks. There's a solo track, and then there's a baritone guitar that we tracked. That's cool. And here is the guitar room. I kind of have like a room design for each instrument. Usually it's the same plugin. In this case, I'm using Waves True Verb. More often than not, it's going to be the same room as the bass and the drums. We'll check that out in a minute. Vocals. So we've got a main lead vocal right here. Then we got a couple of stereo doubles. I usually track the choruses with stereo doubles. Looks like I did the same right here. There is a mono double right here. coming in parts of the verse. So the main vocal is yellow, and then these mustard kind of colored or darker yellow ones are the doubles, and then all the orange ones are harmonies. I usually work in groups of two. So BGV1 and BGV2 are going to be the same part, tracked twice. One is hard pan left and the other is hard pan right. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sets of harmonies. We'll see what those are. These are the vocal effects. We've got room, plate, delay, and chamber. Delay is usually a short delay. We'll see what's going on. So that's basically the arrangement. Nothing too crazy. Let's check out the first verse, see what we got going on.
Caustic, toxic, I'm slipping under the lights. I was born to fight, but not like this. Boots tighten, I fight, holding on for dear life. Take a chance on me, it's a thrill, take the ride.
Okay, so let's start with the vocal side. It's, for the most part, it's a single vocal till we get to that last sentence, and that's where the single double comes in.
Take a chance on me, it's a thrill, take the ride.
Kind of thicken it up a little bit. Here's the contrast.
Fight, holding on for dear life. Take a chance on me, it's a thrill, take the ride.
Kind of this classic effect. You can really hear how that thickens up the vocal. In terms of the instrumentation, there's this really cool thing happening here where there's this kind of call and response between the guitars and the bass, followed with the baritone that kind of follows the bass. Let's mute the vocals for a minute and see what we got going on here. So the drums are keeping this quarter note kick pattern, and then whenever the bass comes in, adds the snare on top of it. Here's what I mean. So here's the guitar, here's the bass and the drums together. Those are really cool accents. And then we added a baritone guitar on top of it just to thicken it up and make it just a little bit meaner. Love it. So the chorus really opens up. Let's check out a quick little instrumental version of the first chorus. I want to isolate that lead guitar. Let's see what's going on there. So the part really adds tons of texture. I'm using the two mics again, as I pointed out before. This time we're panned to the center just so we can get a mono guitar, and I'm using the trim plugin to further balance them out, as you can see right here. On top of it, I've also got a little bit of an EQ rolling out the top and the bottom, kind of keeping it mid-rangey. It looks like I'm adding a little bit of distortion and saturation with the trusted lo-fi. And then iZotope just to clean up a little bit of amp noise. Now in this case, I'm also using the DI track. It looks like I added a little bit of distortion to it. Let's check it out real quick. That's kind of gnarly, and then put it together. Cool. Let's check out what the vocals are doing here on the first chorus.
I'm a natural born runaway. Beg me not to go, just make me stay. All the songs have gone to my head. I only sing in the key of the dead. So leave me now. Is that what I said?
Nice. So the first thing you'll notice is those stereo doubles that really make the vocal kind of pop up. The second thing you might notice is there are no plugins on the vocal. We track vocal through at least 2 compressors, per layer, so the vocals were really big and tight and compressed going into Pro Tools. If I remember correctly, we also high passed them, so there's really wasn't a lot of post processing to be done. We did melodyne the vocals, but other than that, it's pretty much the way we tracked it. We also introducing the harmonies here, and the harmonies do go on this journey throughout the choruses. So chorus 1, we've got one set of harmonies, just kind of going over the main parts of the chorus. Then by chorus 2, it looks like we've got a bunch of other harmonies coming in. So let's start on verse 2 and see how the harmonies progress throughout the song.
Fly, this neon sky was made for me.
So that's that same layer that we introduced in the chorus, or that same register we introduced in the first chorus.
I have earned it was a pleasure to burn. I'm a natural born runaway.
So that's the first time we're introducing a 3-part harmony. That carries on throughout this chorus.
Beg me not to go, just make me stay.
And then the second half of the chorus, we're also introducing some oohs and ahs, just to kind of differentiate it from the first chorus and make it bigger.
All the songs have gone to my head. I only sing in the key of the dead, so leave me now. Is that what I said?
So that is the only chorus where that happens. And then let's check out chorus 3, see what we did there.
Yeah, what I said. I'm a natural born runaway.
Again with the 3-part harmony.
All the songs have gone to my head. I only sing in the key of the dead, so leave me now.
So by this point, we're kind of doing this call and response between the harmonies and the lead vocal. We're also harmonizing both. So both the supporting part and the main part are being harmonized. And then here's that little tag at the end.
Leave me now. Leave me now. Forget my caustic, toxic lies.
Very cool. I'm really happy with this vocal arrangement. It sounds killer. Let's check out the drums a little bit going through, or the rhythm section. Let's check out the drums and the bass going through the song. So as I mentioned in pre-production, we're kind of thinking of the chorus as having 2 separate parts to it, the first half and the second half. Listen to the way the drums and the bass are playing the first chorus. So there's this recurring motif with this syncopated snare that plays on the 1, the N, 2, and the 4. It goes ba 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 ba. So the entire first half has this really intense feeling with the rhythm section, and then halfway through, when the vocals or the melody kind of goes into this emotional climax, the drums change into this straight up rock beat. Then for the last part of the chorus, we're kind of reiterating this syncopated snare thing. Really, really cool. Second verse starts with the build-up and goes on to this tom heavy beat. Check this out. Nice. Then the second chorus is pretty much the same as the first in terms of the rhythm section, reiterating it. Then we're ending with that rhythmic signature thing that we established in pre-production. So So the drum and the bass kind of go back to the beginning, but without the quarter note kick, right? Like this whole thing is a setup. So there's really no need to keep that beat going. It's more about the intensity of the vocal and the emotional quality of the song kind of being built towards this guitar solo. Speaking of the guitar solo, let's see what's going on there. Here's the whole band. Okay, let's isolate that solo. We used a whammy pedal on this one, a Digitech Whammy pedal. Here's what it sounds like. Really cool. Yeah, we were looking for this untraditional solo. We weren't looking for this Guitar Hero kind of, tapping and going over the place solo. We're looking for something that had texture to it and was aggressive and melodic, but at the same time kind of interesting. And we landed on this one. Another guitar part that we kind of tracked throughout are these chugs. They sound like this. The idea here is to just reiterate the rhythm and those machine gun like drum fills. So whenever the drums are doing something like, we've got those chugs on top of them. It sounds like this. Just so the main guitars can kind of keep doing their thing, but still get that little chopped up rhythm thing going on. And then towards the end of the song, let's hear how the entire band kind of accommodates that little tag at the end.
The king of the dead, so leave me alone. Leave me now. Leave me now. Forget my caustic, toxic lies.
Okay, so let's start with the lead guitar. The lead guitar changes a little bit to accommodate the chord progression. Check it out. It does... Here we go. Love the little squeak that we got. So the drums are reiterating this tom part that we established on the setup for this third chorus. It sounds like this.
All the songs have gone.
Then when we get to the tag at the end, really cool. And that's the production track for Runaway.
Toxic lies. This damn neon sky. I can't run this time. No, I can't run this time.
So here is the mix session for Runaway. Let me kind of walk you through how I build a mix. So these red tracks are my buses. So everything to the left of this drum bus ends up routing to the drum bus. The dark red ones are sub buses. So all the kicks route out to the kick sub bus, and then the kick sub bus routes to the drum bus, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how things go. In terms of the color coding, the lighter tracks are the one that I actually tracked, and then the darker ones are usually a parallel processing sort of thing or an enhancement of sorts. Let me show you what I mean. So let's start with these kicks. So kick in, kick sub, and kick out. I've got a little bit of EQ on each one of them. This is the kick in, this is the kick sub, and this is the kick out. And then these all route into two places. So one is this kick sub bus that has a gate on it and then a little bit of subtractive EQ. This is what just the kick sounds like. So So no samples on this one, just the gate that kind of isolates that. And then on top of it, I've got a present, I call it a kick presence track. I've got an EQ that highlights some mids and some top end that I'd like to really come out. And then these go into this very kind of aggressive compressor. Let's see if you can isolate just this track for a second. This is just the kick presence track. So pretty aggressive compression here. And then let's hear what that does to our kick. So here are the 3 kick mics without the presence track. Not bad, adding the presence. Just kind of pushes it out a little bit more. And then let's check out our snare. So this is our snare top. Let's check out the first chorus. Pretty healthy snare to begin with, just a little bit of subtractive EQ and just a little bump on the top end. This is our snare bottom. Nothing to write home about. Sounds like a snare bottom. And then those go to the snare sub bus that has a little bit of a gate, some distortion that I'm adding with lo-fi, and then this Neve channel that adds a little bit of saturation as well. And then on top of it, I've got this snare dirt track, which has a trigger. So this is a sample of the actual snare that we recorded the day of the recording. And then that goes into some fairly aggressive distortion. Let's try to mimic that. So here is just the snare dirt track. That's pretty aggressive. So here is the snare with before the dirt. Sorry, here is the snare without the dirt. Not bad. Here it is with the distortion added. Just gives it a lot more oomph in there. And then both the kick and the snare are going into this kick and snare crush track. So let's hear what that does. Here is the kick and snare crush track. So I'm crushing it with a distressor, with the UAD distressor, and then if you add that into the mix, it just helps the kick and the snare kind of come forward a little bit more. Here's the entire drum kit. Without the kick and snare crush. And here's with. It helps move things forward a little bit. It's not night and day. It's not night and day. It doesn't do a lot of heavy lifting, but it really helps with kind of moving it forward a little bit. Let's check out our toms. So the toms are edited out, which means that they're muted when they're not playing. Let's check out this part for a minute. Here are just the toms. So I've got this Acme compressor on the toms. Then on each tom, I've got a little bit of EQ, and it looks like I'm tuning the toms a little bit. Let's check out, that was the rack tom, here's the floor tom. And then it looks like I'm adding another sample on top of it, but only about 20%. So for the most part, I'm using the tom as I recorded it. And then on top of it, on the tom bus, I've also got this lo-fi adding a little bit of distortion. And then on top of that, I've got this tom presence track, kind of like what we did with the kick. So I'm just filtering out the low end. I'm adding a bunch of distortion with Decapitator, and then even more distortion with lo-fi, just to make sure that the toms come out. So here are the toms without the parallel processing without the tom's presence. Pretty good. Here's with. Really add some definition to those toms. Here's what the toms sound like in contact with the rest of the drum kit. Okay, let's check out our overheads. Here's the second chorus, overheads isolated. So we recorded these with the overheads in ORTF. We used 2 small diaphragm condensers in ORTF. I probably went through some kind of an EQ, just filtering out some of the low mid, and then I'm filtering out the low, or I'm taking out a little bit more of low mid in here, around 500, and then I'm distorting it a little bit with Decapitator. I am not compressing further. It sounds like I compress it a lot going into Pro Tools. There's a healthy amount of compression going on there, so I didn't feel the need to compress it even further. And that is our drum kit. So let's check out our drum bus. So this is all going into the drum bus. There is the Studer A800, adding some beautiful low end with the 15 IPS setting. And then we've got the API 2500 adding a little bit of compression. Let's see how hard we're pushing these. So not a crazy amount. We're getting about 2 to 3 dB of compression with the 2500, and then the tape machine is not being pushed crazy hard. It's just adding a little bit of character, helping us smooth the transients, and adding that low end glow that 15 IPS is kind of famous for. Let's check out the bass. So the bass DI is split into 2 different tracks. Let me get rid of these other ones for a minute. So bass low and bass high mid. Let's check out these guys out real quick. So as you can see, the output from the bass DI is going into the input of bass low and bass high mid. So let's check this out. So I compress the bass a little bit going in. I'm filtering out everything at around 120. There's a little high pass filter there. And then I'm adding a little bit of compression with our trusty old BF76. Very kind of moderate amount. Let's hear the low end. So for the low end, I'm using this EQ trick with a Pultec. I'm boosting it all the way up at 100 Hertz. And then filtering out everything beneath 290-ish. And then I'm compressing that. Let's check out what this sounds like. So by doing that, I'm basically compressing the low end of the bass separately to get consistent low end throughout the song, throughout the performance. The idea is a little bit like multi-band compression, but kind of separating out the low end from the rest of the bass. And then let's check out the high and mid part of the bass. So I'm filtering out everything above 290, so I've got this kind of crossover thing going on here with the low and the high mid. And then I'm compressing just that part of the bass. Again, to get a consistent performance throughout. Then I'm adding a little bit of distortion with UAD, the UAD's version of a rat pedal. So again, here is the bass DI. You can hear how consistent the bass is. And then on top of that, we're adding a little bit more distortion with the Sans amp. It sounds like this. Just filtering out the low end a little bit there. And then here is our bass. It looks like I reamped it with our trusted SVT plugin. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah, it really adds that amp sound and kind of makes it a bit more 3D. Here are all of the bass tracks played together. really cool rock bass. On the bass bus, we're starting off with our trusty Studer at 15 IPS. Adding a little bit of a bump kind of around 500. It's very common for me to cut the low mids on a lot of instruments between 300 and 500. So this kind of helps the bass shine around that. So moving on the bass bus, we've got the trusty old Distressor, using a high-pass filter on the detection, meaning that it's only compressing above a certain threshold of frequencies, usually around 80 or 90 hertz, which means that the low end is coming through, but everything above that threshold is being compressed. And I'm also adding a little bit of distortion. I'm using the link feature because I feel like it distorts it a little bit differently. And then I've got another slower compressor, the Acme that I also used on the toms, and then I've got a little bit more equalization there. It looks like because of all of this chain, because this chain added a little bit more low end, I'm kind of being a bit more conservative about my low end. So let's hear what that sounds like one more time. Let's check out our rhythm section, the bass and the drums together. Okay, moving on to the electric guitars. We've got electric guitar 1 and electric guitar 2. Let's check these out without any other processing going on here. So pretty healthy sounding electric guitars. We've got our high pass. I'm not doing a lot in terms of the EQ, and then the iZotope RX just to get rid of some imp noise. I've got some parallel processing here. So we've got rhythm electric guitar Dirt and then Crush. Let's see what these guys do. So on the Dirt side, we've got a Shep 73, which looks like I'm distorting. So I'm adding some extra distortion with that Neve. And then with the Crush, looks like I've got two separate 1176s crushing the heck out of these guitars. So let's start with let's hear what the Dirt is doing. So let's isolate these real quick. So here is just the Dirt track. That's kind of gnarly. I dig that. And then let's see what the Crush track is doing. So it looks like with the first 1176, I'm not really compressing, I'm just adding a bunch of dirt and gain. Then the second one is hitting pretty hard. Really kind of brings out the grit. So let's hear the two electric guitars with and without. So those are the two electric guitars without processing. Here is adding the Dirt and the Crush tracks. Definitely making those guitars sound bigger, more intense, more distorted, and more kind of in your face. And then we've got electric guitar 3, which is our chugging guitar. It's this guy. This one is not really getting any special treatment here except for the parallel processing. And then we've got the Baritone. Let's check this one out. So I am cutting a little bit on the low mid, and then I'm adding even more distortion with Devil Lock, and I'm adding even more distortion in post with our parallel processing. Let's check this out. So here's the baritone again without the parallel processing. And here's the baritone with the parallel processing. Pretty cool. Let's check both of them out. So here are all the guitars on the second chorus. Definitely big and thick. The guitars are definitely taking center stage there on the chorus. Moving on to the lead guitars, we've got electric guitar lead. Again, pretty much the same EQ that we had in production. And then I'm adding some more distortion with Decapitator. Then on the DI, I'm also adding some distortion with the help of our Sans amp. Let's check out what this sounds like. Very cool, a little bit of delay coming in post. And then on the solo side, let's hear what we got going on here. So we've got some distortion, looks like I'm melodined the solo a little bit. Probably want to get the notes with the whammy just a little bit more accurate. Adding some distortion with Decapitator and then a little bit of compression here on the top, on the peaks of the solo. Sounds pretty cool. Then we also have some parallel processing going with the electric guitars. This is the dirt track, adding with Decapitator, and this will be the crush track. Let's hear the solo. Actually, let's listen to the lead part without the parallel processing. Here's the lead guitar without the parallel processing. Pretty healthy, and here's with the parallel processing. Definitely has a lot more bite to it. Cool. Let's hear the... Oh, let's talk a little bit about the sub buses. So all the rhythm guitars are going into this sub bus. It gets a little bit more distortion with Decapitator, and then a little bit of compression with this Purple 1176. Let's check this out. Here are just the rhythm guitars. So even though the guitars were pretty distorted going into Pro Tools, I keep adding more and more distortion in post to get even more harmonics and get the guitars to really sit there in the mix and like jump out of the speakers. And then for the lead guitars on the lead guitar sub bus, we've got its own Decapitator with its own settings and then a little bit of compression as well, even though we already compressed it on the track itself, and we've got some parallel processing going on, excuse me. And then on the guitar bus, we've got our trusty Studer 800, again 15 IPs, and then we've got a final compressor. Let's see how hard it's working. So here's the second chorus with all the guitars pulled in. So not a lot of heavy lifting, but definitely helps pull it in a little bit and rein it in. The way I'm thinking of compressors on the buses is just to help with the transients a little bit. Like I'm trying to compress the transients a little by little as I move forward with production. So by the time we reach the main sub mix, the transients are pretty much tied in, and we can get a louder, bigger mix. Okay, so let's hear everything but the vocals. So the entire band up to this point. We'll mute the vocals. Here's the second chorus. Actually, let me start on the second verse. Here is the band. let's look at the lead vocal here for a minute. So starting off on chorus 2, here's our lead vocal. In terms of EQ, we've just got a little bit of a bump here at around 200. We're cutting it down a little bit. We've got RX mouth declick, which I oftentimes put on my vocals, really helps cleaning them out a little bit. And then we've got a de-esser. Let's hear what that sounds like. So we've got a bunch of other things going on here. So let's talk about effects for a minute. The first kind of effect we've got, let's mute these guys for a minute. So the first effect we have is this room reverb. Just to not make it sound like she's singing in a vacuum. Here's without it. Very dry with it. Sounds more like a space. And then we've got a plate. I'm using this plate-140 on the vocal. I believe from Arturia. It's a really, really nice EMT 140 plate. It sounds like this. It sounds like this. And then with the room as well. Really gives some space to the vocals. And then I got a little bit of a short delay here. Let's see what's going on. Here is just a delay isolated. A fairly short delay, 150 milliseconds. Here are all three together. You'll notice that the delay is also feeding back to the plate. So we get a little bit of reverb on the delay returns. Here's what that sounds like. Let me exaggerate the delay real quick. And then the last thing we have here is this track I called Spread. It's MicroShift. It's an old kind of H3000 kind of an effect where the vocal are slightly pitched differently on each side to make the vocal kind of wider. Let me isolate that real quick. You'll hear what I mean. I'm kind of using that sparingly. I just want the vocals to get a little bit more width. So here are all the vocal effects together. Okay, let's talk a little bit about processing or parallel processing. By this point, you know that I'm a big fan of distortion and some parallel processing. So we've got lead vocal dirt and lead vocal crush right here. Both are in parallel. So lead vocal dirt is Devil-Lock, which I'm a huge fan of, very aggressive distortion. And then we're back with the Purple Audio 1176 plugin to crush the vocal. Here's the vocal without these. Here's with. Now you can really hear how that adds to the vocal. Let's isolate these guys real quick. So here is just the vocal dirt track. So a fair amount of distortion on that guy. Let's hear the crush track and hear how much we're crushing the lead vocal here. So all buttons in mode, kind of a classic 1176 trick. Where the meter goes all the way to -5, but we're getting a lot more compression with this kind of crazy setting. It sounds really, really cool. Check it out. It's saturating a little bit, so we get a little bit of distortion, but it really kind of glues or kind of pushes the vocal forward. Here again is the vocal with both of the parallel processing tracks and all the effects.
I'm a natural born runaway.
Cool. And then on the vocals, skipping to the vocal bus real quick, we've got our Studer 8100, which I've got on every single bus. And then I'm reducing a little bit more low end here on the vocal. And then finally, we've got an 11E76 Rev A to top it off. Let's hear what that sounds like with the doubles in place as well.
I'm a natural born runaway.
So I'm compressing a fair amount of the vocals with all the effects and with the doubles, again, kind of to glue it together and make sure that everything comes forward a little bit more. It's very challenging to get a vocal to come through. It's such a busy, dense rock track. So this is one of the ways in which I'm doing that. Speaking of the doubles, all of these doubles are routing into this LV lead vocal double sub bus. I'm just filtering out some of the low ends all the way up to 150. Then I'm distorting them a little bit, which is kind of a theme by now. And I'm compressing them even further, even though they were tracked through a couple of compressors. Here are just the stereo doubles in the chorus. Okay, and here's the lead vocal with the parallel processing and the doubles going into the main vocal bus. Let's see what's going on here.
Born runaway. Beg me not to go, just make me stay.
Yep, so I'm pushing it pretty hard, and then on the Studer, I'm also cranking the bias a little bit just to help soften the S's a tiny little bit more and make sure that they don't pop out, kind of like an old school version of a de-esser. That's the lead vocal. Let's move on to the harmonies. So the harmonies are these orange tracks, and there's also a parallel processing track with some extra distortion. In terms of processing, we're cutting a little bit of the low mid. I've got a bit of de-essing on it, and then a fair amount of compression. Let's check out these harmonies real quick. Oh, let's check out this track, sorry. So not a ton of compression on the track. And then on the backup vocal bus, oh, I'm sorry. So there, in terms of effects, we've got this track says chamber, but looks like I changed my mind at one point and created a hall with this Lexicon 224. And I'm making sure that there's no low end kind of going into it. This is the harmony reverb. Pretty cool. And then these are all going into the BGV bus with our A800. And then I'm using this Aphex vintage Aural exciter to add some top end, to add some treble on top of it. I'm compressing even further, and then I'm compressing and distorting with the Distressor. So let's see what it sounds like with all of these harmonies together. This is the processing for the backup vocal bus. Cool. Let's check out the acapella version of this. So let's check out all of the backup vocals and of the lead vocals. This is the processed version of that, chorus 2.
Just make me stay. All the songs have gone to my head. I only sing in the key of the dead. So leave me now. Is that what I said?
Pretty cool. Okay, let's check out our submix. So all of these buses route into the submix. I'm starting out with this Waves NLS console emulation. This is the bus version of it sitting on the submix. And then on each one of my other buses, I've got the channel version of that. And I'm using the SSL emulation, specifically on this one. Then I've got the trusted SSL bus compressor. I'm using this black box analog design HG2, which is basically a saturation box, a tube saturation box. It's a model after a hardware unit. I really like that one. And then looks like we've got API 2500 on top of that. And that's pretty much it. That is all the bus processing that we have. So let's hear the entire mix going into the bus processing with all of these plugins, just so you can see how much or how little I'm using them. Yeah, that's it. I'm not doing a lot of heavy lifting on the submix. I want to make sure that the mastering engineer has enough room to work their magic, so not a lot going on there. When I deliver it to the band, I do add a limiter right here on the submix, just to make sure that the loudness is competitive and they can have a point of reference. But when I'm sending it out to the mastering engineer or when I'm printing stems or anything like that, it's usually off. And that's it. That's how we made Runaway by Tess The Details. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Be sure to follow the band on social media and check out their other songs. Until next time.